The world through a sniper's scope is a universe compressed into glass. Everything outside the reticle ceases to exist. There is only the target, the wind, the distance, and the heartbeat that must slow to nothing. Captain Sienna Blackwell's breathing followed the ancient rhythm. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds empty. Her heart rate had dropped to 52 beats per minute. The rifle beneath her cheek was an extension of her skeleton, as much a part of her as bone and sinew. Through the Leopold Mark V HD scope, magnified 25 times, she could see the thermal signature of her target, a man, standing on a rooftop in Kabul, 2,847 meters away, nearly 2 miles, the distance where the Earth's rotation becomes a factor in the mathematics of death. The wind was a living thing, 14 miles per hour at her position, gusting to 19, shifting direction every 40 seconds. She had been watching it for 3 hours, learning its personality, understanding its moods. Her spotter, Master Sergeant Garrett Hollis, lay beside her in the hide. His voice came through her earpiece, low and steady. Wind's holding at 16. Mirage is running hard left to right. Target is stationary. You've got a window. Sienna's finger rested on the trigger of her father's rifle, a customized .338 Lapua Magnum. The weapon had been built in 1992. Her father had carried it through Mogadishu in 1993. He had made 21 kills with it before an enemy sniper's bullet found him during the Battle of the Black Sea. Sienna had been 3 years old when they folded the flag and handed it to her mother. She had added 26 kills to her father's 21. This would be number 48 combined, number 27 for her alone. The target moved, turned his head, looked directly toward her position, though he could not possibly see her. She was a ghost, a shadow, a rumor of death carried on wind currents across impossible distance. Her lungs exhaled half their air. Everything fell away. The crosshairs settled. Steady, perfect, inevitable. She pressed the trigger. The rifle pushed back against her shoulder. The suppressed crack was immediately swallowed by the vast indifference of the Afghan sky. The 255-grain bullet left the muzzle at 2,940 feet per second, spinning at thousands of revolutions per minute. For 2.6 seconds, the bullet flew. It rose on its arc, reached apogee, began its descent. The wind pushed it. The Earth's rotation pulled it. Gravity claimed it. Physics and mathematics and 300 hours of training guided it. Through the scope, Sienna watched the impact. Center mass. The target dropped like a puppet with severed strings. No drama, no movie theatrics, just the instant transition from alive to not alive. Confirmed kill, Hollis said. Target down. That's 47 for you, Cap. Sienna was already working the bolt, ejecting the spent casing, chambering a new round, scanning for secondary threats. There were none. The rooftop was empty except for the body. She did not feel triumph. She did not feel satisfaction. She felt only the completion of a task, a problem solved, an equation balanced. Her father's rifle had spoken again. The legacy continued. Exfil in 10, she said. Her voice was flat, emotionless, the voice of someone reporting weather conditions. Roger that, Hollis replied. He was already packing the spotting scope, collapsing the hide, erasing evidence of their presence. Sienna allowed herself one moment. She touched the stock of her father's rifle, felt the worn wood beneath her fingers, wondered if he had felt this same emptiness after each kill, this same hollowness that came from being very good at something that required pieces of your soul as payment. Then she packed the rifle into its case and became a shadow again. The screen went black. White text appeared. 6 months later. The CH-47 Chinook helicopter descended through dust and heat toward forward operating base Stryker. The rotor wash created a brownout condition, sand swirling in blinding vortices. Sienna sat in the web seat, her father's rifle case across her knees, watching the chaos through the open ramp. She was small, 5 feet 4 inches, 118 pounds. Her uniform was one size too large, as if she had borrowed it from an older brother. Her face was unremarkable, brown hair pulled back in a regulation bun, no makeup, no jewelry, nothing to draw attention except her eyes, which were the color of winter sky and held the same warmth. On her right sleeve, just below her captain's rank insignia, was a patch, a dark circle showing a stylized phoenix rising from what appeared to be static or smoke. Embroidered beneath the bird were 3 Latin words in silver thread: Fides in tenebris, faith in darkness. The Chinook touched down. The ramp dropped. Heat slammed into the interior like a physical force. 109 degrees Fahrenheit. The wind carried the smell of diesel fuel, burning trash, and the particular odor of a military base in a war zone. Sweat and anxiety, and the metallic tang of weapons oil. Sienna stood, shouldered her rifle case and rucksack, walked down the ramp into Afghanistan. Soldiers stared. A dozen men loading cargo pallets stopped their work to watch her. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to skepticism to something darker. A woman, a tiny woman, wearing captain's bars and carrying a rifle case that looked bigger than her torso. One of them muttered something to his buddy. Both laughed. The sound carried across the landing zone. Hollis followed her down the ramp. He was everything she was not. 6 feet 2 inches, 220 pounds of muscle earned through 22 years of service. His face was a roadmap of deployments: Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, Yemen. He had a scar across his left eyebrow from shrapnel, another along his jaw from a knife fight in Mogadishu that he never talked about. He walked slightly behind Sienna and to her left, a protective position, old habits from 6 deployments together. "Welcome to Scenic Striker," he said, "the FOB that time forgot and good taste never found." Sienna said nothing. She was already cataloging her surroundings: exits, lines of fire, defensive positions, the location of the TOC, the Tactical Operations Center, identifiable by its cluster of antennas, the DFAC, the dining facility, marked by the smell of mass-produced food, the blast walls, the guard towers, the patterns of foot traffic. Her brain processed information like a combat computer. Everything was data. Everything mattered. They walked toward the processing tent. Around them, FOB Striker buzzed with the activity of 400 souls deployed to the edge of nowhere. Soldiers on their way to the gym, contractors heading to the motor pool, officers moving between meetings with that particular walk that suggested their time was more valuable than yours. Captain Blackwell, a young specialist, stood beside a dusty pickup truck. He couldn't have been more than 22. His uniform was crisp. His name tape read, Morrison. "I'm your escort to billeting, ma'am. Sergeant Hollis, you're with me too." They loaded their gear into the truck bed. Morrison drove them through the FOB at exactly 15 miles per hour, the speed limit enforced by bored military police with nothing better to do than write tickets. "First time at Striker, ma'am?" Morrison asked. "Yes. It's not too bad. DFAC food is better than most places. We've got a decent gym. Internet is shit, but it works sometimes. General Kincaid runs a tight ship." At the mention of the general's name, Morrison's tone shifted, became more formal, more careful. "He's old school, ma'am. Real old school. His dad was Medal of Honor from Korea. The general takes the military serious." "Noted," Sienna said. They arrived at the containerized housing units. Morrison helped them unload their gear. "DFAC opens at 17:30 for dinner, ma'am. You'll want to get there early. Gets crowded." "Thank you, Specialist." Morrison hesitated. His eyes went to the Phoenix patch on her sleeve. He started to ask a question, then thought better of it, saluted instead, drove away. Inside the CHU, the containerized housing unit, Sienna unpacked with mechanical precision. Uniforms hung in order, boots aligned, toiletries arranged by height. Her father's rifle case went on the top shelf of the wall locker, horizontal, secured. She sat on the narrow bed, pulled out her phone. No signal, no internet. She was alone with her thoughts, which was a dangerous place to be. 6 deployments, 47 confirmed kills, 5 countries, 3 Purple Hearts she had never told her mother about, a Distinguished Service Cross for an operation in Syria that officially never happened, 2 Silver Stars, a Bronze Star with Valor device, and a Phoenix patch that most of the Army didn't recognize because Task Force Phantom operated in shadows so deep that even their shadows had security clearances. 52 operators had worn the Phoenix since 1983. 49 were dead. The patches they had worn were retired, mounted in a secure facility at Fort Bragg, each one representing a warrior who had risen from darkness and returned to it permanently. Sienna was one of 3 still breathing, still operating, still adding to the legacy. She lay back on the bed, closed her eyes, did not sleep. Sleep required a level of vulnerability she could not afford. Instead, she entered a state of rest that left her aware of her surroundings, cataloging sounds, footsteps outside, voices, a generator humming, the distant thump of a helicopter. At 17:15 she rose, changed into a clean uniform, checked her appearance in the small mirror. Regulation, professional, unremarkable except for the patch. Always the patch. Hollis knocked on her door at 17:25. "Ready for the culinary delights of the DFAC?" he asked. They walked together through the FOB as the sun began its descent toward the mountains. The temperature had dropped to a pleasant 103 degrees. Shadows lengthened. The base took on the golden quality of evening in the desert, almost beautiful if you ignored the concertina wire and the machine gun nests. The dining facility was a large tent structure with air conditioning units roaring at full capacity. Inside, the temperature was a frigid 70 degrees. Soldiers sat at long tables, eating and talking with the particular volume of people who spent their days in dangerous proximity to death and needed to fill the silence with noise. Sienna moved through the serving line, took rice, grilled chicken, steamed vegetables, a bottle of water. Nothing more. Fuel for the machine. She scanned the room, found an empty table in the corner, sat with her back to the wall, facing the entrance. Old habits. Essential habits. She was halfway through her meal when the sound in the DFAC changed. The volume dropped. Conversations faltered. Heads turned toward the entrance. Brigadier General Raymond Kincaid had entered the building. He was 62 years old and looked like a recruiting poster from 1975. 6 feet tall, ramrod straight posture, silver hair cut high and tight. His uniform was perfectly pressed despite the heat. His boots gleamed. His chest was a mosaic of ribbons and badges representing 40 years of service. Combat Infantryman badge from Korea. His father's badge, awarded posthumously and passed down. Jump wings. Ranger tab. A rack of campaign ribbons from conflict stretching back to the tail end of the Cold War. He had been a lieutenant in Desert Storm, a major in the Balkans, a colonel in Iraq. He walked through the DFAC with an entourage. His executive officer, Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Shepard, 2 captains whose job was apparently to carry his importance for them. A first sergeant who looked like he ate nails for breakfast and washed them down with diesel fuel. Kincaid's eyes swept the room, taking inventory of his kingdom, his soldiers, his base, his war. Then his eyes found Sienna. More specifically, they found the Phoenix patch on her sleeve. His face changed. A micro-expression that someone less observant might have missed. Confusion, then suspicion, then something harder, anger. He altered course, walked directly toward her table. His entourage followed like pilot fish trailing a shark. The DFAC went completely silent. 200 soldiers and contractors watching, waiting. sensing drama the way prey animals sense a predator. Sienna continued eating. She did not look up, did not acknowledge his approach, but her peripheral vision tracked him. Her brain calculated distances, angles, exits. He stopped at her table, stood over her, cast a shadow across her tray. Staff Sergeant. His voice was accustomed to filling briefing rooms and parade grounds. It carried authority like a weapon. Sienna finished chewing, swallowed, placed her fork down neatly beside her plate. Only then did she look up. "Captain, sir." Her voice was quiet, flat, a statement of fact with no emotion attached. Kincaid's eyes narrowed. He glanced at her rank insignia, captain's bars, then back to her face. She looked young, too young, like someone who should be finishing college, not commanding soldiers in a combat zone. "Captain," he repeated. The words sounded like an accusation. He pointed at her phoenix patch. "I don't recognize that piece of flair you're wearing." "It's a unit insignia, sir. Task Force Phantom." "Task Force Phantom." He said it slowly, as if tasting the words and finding them unsatisfactory. "I'm familiar with every authorized unit patch in this theater of operations. Every single one. That little bird of yours is not on the list." His XO, Lieutenant Colonel Shepard, stepped forward. He had the look of a man who had never met a ladder he wouldn't climb or a superior he wouldn't flatter. "Looks like something from the internet, sir," Shepard said. "One of those tactical brands that sell to wannabes." A few soldiers chuckled. The sound was ugly, eager, the sound of people enjoying someone else's humiliation. Sienna's expression did not change. She looked at Kincaid with eyes that held no fear, no anger, no anything, just a flat, measuring gaze. "It was issued to me, sir. Authorities for wear by members of my unit." "Issued by who?" Kincaid demanded. He leaned forward, bracing his hands on her table. The table wobbled slightly under his weight. "Captain Crunch?" More laughter, louder this time. The audience was warming up. "The insignia is authorized for Task Force Phantom operators, General. We're a special access program under JSOC." "JSOC?" Kincaid straightened, crossed his arms. "Let me guess, you're one of those secret squirrels, too special to follow the same rules as everyone else." "I follow all applicable regulations, sir." "Then take it off." The words fell like a gavel. Final. Absolute. "Sir, I'm not authorized to remove my unit insignia." "You're not authorized." Kincaid's face flushed red. A vein appeared at his temple, pulsing visibly. "Staff Sergeant." "Captain, sir." "Whatever you are, you're a guest at my FOB. Your team is attached to my command, which means you fall under my authority. I am giving you a direct order. Remove that ridiculous patch or I will have the military police escort you to the stockade for disobeying a lawful order from a general officer. Is that clear?" Every eye in the DFAC was locked on them. 200 witnesses to a public execution. Sienna could feel their stares like physical pressure. She picked up her bottle of water, unscrewed the cap slowly, took a small sip, screwed the cap back on with deliberate precision. She glanced at the ceiling, noting the location of the security camera. It had a perfect view of their table. Chain of custody, documentation, everything on record. Then she met Kincaid's furious gaze again. "Understood, sir." She stood, picked up her tray, walked to the disposal window, scraped her plate clean, placed the tray on the rack with the same care she gave to cleaning her rifle. She did not reach for her sleeve, did not touch the phoenix patch. She walked toward the exit, passed within 3 feet of General Kincaid, did not salute, did not acknowledge him, simply walked out of the DFAC into the cooling evening air. Behind her, the silence held for another 3 seconds. Then the noise rushed back in. Whispers, speculation. The general standing there with his order hanging in the air like smoke, unfulfilled. Kincaid's face had gone from red to purple. His hands were clenched into fists. "Colonel Shepard, sir, get me her service record. I want to know who the hell she thinks she is." The Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility, the SCIF, was a windowless container buried behind 3 layers of security. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of ozone from the servers. The walls were lined with equipment, monitors, encryption devices, satellite uplinks, the digital nervous system of the FOB's intelligence apparatus. Sienna sat at her workstation. The screen glowed blue in the dim light. Hollis sat beside her, his face tight with controlled anger. "That was bullshit," he said quietly. "Complete bullshit. You want me to go over his head? I can have Colonel Watkins on the phone in—" "No. Sienna, he humiliated you in front of the entire base." "He tried to humiliate me. There's a difference." She opened a new encrypted file, began typing. Her fingers moved with practiced efficiency across the keyboard. Incident report. Date, 15th of October, 2018. Time, 1837 Zulu. Location, dining facility, forward operating base striker. Subject, interaction with Brigadier General Raymond Kincaid. She documented the conversation verbatim, a feat of memory that would have astonished anyone who didn't know her. Every word, every gesture. She listed the personnel involved: General Kincaid, Lieutenant Colonel Shepard, herself. She noted the presence of approximately 200 witnesses and the position of Security Camera 7, which had a direct line of sight to the incident. She described the order given and her response. She did not characterize the general's tone or intent. She did not mention her own feelings because there were none worth mentioning. There was only data. The interaction was a data point. The general's emotional response was a variable. Her own compliance was a control. She finished the report, encrypted it, saved it to a secure server, accessible only by Task Force Phantom's operational command, 7,000 miles away at Fort Bragg. She did not send it, simply filed it. A piece of documented proof, waiting. Chain of custody mattered. With the report complete, she turned to another screen. This one displayed a waterfall of radio frequency signals harvested from the valley below the FOB. A chaotic spectrum of noise that looked like digital rain. She put on high-fidelity headphones, closed her eyes, let the patterns flow over her. To anyone else, it was static, white noise, the electromagnetic screaming of a modern battlefield. To Sienna, it was a language. She could discern the unique digital fingerprints of different radio models, the subtle frequency-hopping algorithms they used, the latency in their networks that betrayed the location of command nodes, the encryption protocols, the bandwidth utilization patterns. This was her true domain. Not the rifle, though she was exceptional with it. The rifle was a tool. This was art, the world of signals and whispers, ghosts in the machine. She spent 3 hours in that chair, motionless except for occasional, minute adjustments to filters on her terminal, building a picture of the enemy's communications network, not by its content, but by its behavior. It was meticulous work, painstaking, work that required patience bordering on the inhuman. Hollis brought her coffee. She drank it without tasting it, fuel for the machine. At 2200 hours, she stood, stretched, her back cracked like gunfire. "I'm calling it," Hollis said. "You need sleep." Soon. Sienna, she looked at him. Hollis had been with her through 5 deployments, had spotted for her on 38 of her 47 kills, had carried her off a rooftop in Syria when shrapnel from an RPG had torn through her left leg, had never once questioned her capability or her judgment. 4 hours, she said, then I'm back. Fair enough. Just remember you're human, Cap. Mostly. She almost smiled. Almost. The knock on her CHU door came at 0600 hours the next morning. Sharp. Official. The knock of someone who enjoyed delivering bad news. Sienna had been awake for an hour, had already completed her morning routine, physical training, shower, uniform preparation. She was drinking coffee and reading intelligence summaries when the knock came. She opened the door. Lieutenant Colonel Shepard stood there with two military police sergeants flanking him. He held a tablet computer and wore an expression of poorly concealed satisfaction. "Captain Blackwell, I'm here to deliver a tasking order from General Kincaid." "Proceed." Shepard handed her the tablet. She read quickly. Her face betrayed nothing. "You're being reassigned," Shepard said. "Effective immediately. We have a backlog of raw signals intelligence data from Sector Gamma. 4 months of collection. 6.2 terabytes. It's been flagged as low priority. Mostly atmospheric noise in commercial spillover. Your new assignment is to manually review all of it. Tag any anomalies. Provide a full analytical report." He paused. Let the words sink in. "The deadline is 96 hours from now, 0600 on the 19th. It was a punishment disguised as an assignment, a cruel one. 6.2 terabytes of data, 96 hours to analyze it. The digital equivalent of being ordered to count every grain of sand on a beach. An impossible task designed to break her, to bury her in meaningless work, to remove her from any operational role where she might distinguish herself." "Understood, Colonel," Sienna said. Her voice was unchanged, flat, professional. Shepard's smile grew. "See that you do, Captain. General Kincaid takes a personal interest in your success." He took the tablet back, turned to leave, paused. "That patch," he said, pointing at her sleeve, "you might want to reconsider wearing it. The General has made his position clear." "Noted." Shepard left. The MPs followed. Sienna closed the door, stood in the center of her small room for exactly 10 seconds. Processing, calculating. Then she walked to the SCIF. Hollis was already there, coffee in hand. He took one look at her face. "What happened?" "We've been reassigned. Punishment detail. 6.2 terabytes of garbage data from Sector Gamma. 96-hour deadline." Hollis set his coffee down carefully. "That's impossible. It would take a team of 10 analysts a month to work through that much noise. It's a task. The task will be completed." "Sienna, he's setting you up to fail. This is retaliation for last night." "I'm aware." She sat at her terminal, began pulling the first data blocks from the server. The screen filled with incomprehensible streams of numbers and waveforms. Hollis watched her for a moment, saw the absolute focus settle over her like a cloak. He had seen this before, the transformation from human to instrument, from person to purpose. "I'll help however I can," he said. "I know. Thank you." For the next 72 hours, Sienna worked. She did not sleep, did not leave the SCIF except to use the bathroom. Hollis brought her food, which she ate at her station without tasting. Brought her coffee, brought her water. He tried to help, but the sheer volume was overwhelming, and he lacked her unique talent for seeing patterns in chaos. She worked through the data methodically, block by block, hour by hour. Most of it was exactly what Shepard had said: junk, atmospheric interference, commercial signals bleeding over, digital noise from 1,000 sources. But Sienna did not see junk. She saw a landscape. And every landscape has features. On the second day, 43 hours into the assignment, deep inside a corrupted data block from a drone surveillance flight 11 weeks prior, she found it. A ghost. A signal fragment that lasted less than 1/10 of a second. An encrypted burst transmission that had been dismissed by the automated systems as a sensor glitch. But it had a signature, a specific pattern in its frequency hopping sequence. A digital stutter so faint it was practically non-existent. A fingerprint. She had seen this fingerprint before, in current intercepts, in recent collections. It belonged to a network the intelligence community had been tracking for 14 months. The network of a man known only as the Chemist, an IED mastermind, a bomb maker whose devices had killed 89 coalition personnel, a ghost who had survived 3 dedicated kill operations and countless drone strikes. He was the most wanted target in the sector. And this fragment, this tiny ghost of data from 11 weeks ago, was his signature. Sienna's fingers flew across the keyboard. She pulled up the timestamp, the GPS coordinates of the drone when it recorded the fragment, cross-referenced with satellite imagery from that day. There was nothing there, just empty high desert, rock and sand. She pulled thermal imaging overlays, still nothing. Then she accessed ground-penetrating radar logs from a different surveillance pass, a different system, a different wavelength. And there it was, a faint anomaly, a void beneath the sand, approximately 12 feet down, regular in shape, artificial, an underground structure, a bunker, the entrance perfectly concealed. The signal fragment had been a transmission, brief, encrypted, sent when someone entered or exited the facility, a digital breadcrumb that had been invisible to everyone except someone looking with the right eyes, someone patient enough, obsessive enough, skilled enough. The chemist had been right under their noses for months, hidden in plain sight. And Sienna had found him. She compiled her findings, created a 3-page report. Signal analysis, geolocation data, radar signatures, a proposed tactical solution. She included everything, made it undeniable. She sent it through encrypted channels to Captain Morris, her actual commanding officer within Task Force Phantom, a pragmatic officer who had served with Sienna on 2 previous deployments. He was technically attached to Kincaid's command, but operated with significant autonomy. The reply came back in 40 minutes. Bringing this to Kincaid immediately. Stand by. Sienna leaned back in her chair. Hollis was asleep at his terminal, head on his arms, snoring softly. She had been working for 67 hours straight. Her eyes burned. Her back ached. Her hands trembled slightly from caffeine and exhaustion. But she had done it. Turned the punishment into a solution. Found the needle in the digital haystack. Now came the hard part, convincing them to listen. The FOB's Tactical Operations Center erupted in controlled chaos at 1400 hours on day 5. An informant had been captured during a raid. Under interrogation, he had revealed that the chemist was planning a massive attack on Route Phoenix, the main supply road. A vehicle-borne improvised explosive device, a VBIED. The target was a logistics convoy scheduled to transit the route in 16 hours. The convoy consisted of 47 vehicles, carrying supplies for 3 forward operating bases. Personnel count estimated at 412 soldiers, contractors, and local national drivers. If the chemists succeeded, it would be the deadliest single attack in the sector in 2 years. Panic was setting in. General Kincaid's command staff were throwing assets at the problem, sending drones to every suspected location, ground teams to check known safe houses, but they were flying blind. The chemist remained a ghost. Captain Morris entered the TOC carrying a tablet. He made his way through the crowd of officers and specialists to where General Kincaid stood at the main display, staring at a map of the sector like he could will the enemy into visibility through force of concentration. "Sir, I have actionable intelligence on the chemist's location." Every head in the TOC turned. Kincaid looked at Morris like he had just claimed to have found Atlantis. "From where?" "Captain Blackwell, Task Force Phantom. She's been analyzing the signals data from Sector Gamma." Kincaid's expression darkened. "Your quiet little specialist who thinks uniform regulations don't apply to her." Morris kept his voice level, professional. "Sir, she has triangulated the chemist's primary command location. The data is solid, high confidence." He held out the tablet. Kincaid waved it away dismissively. "I don't have time for conspiracy theories from a disgruntled captain. We're chasing real leads here." "General." "Dismissed, Captain." At that moment, a new piece of intelligence came in. A signals analyst at the far end of the TOC called out, "Sir, we have an intercept. Low-level enemy operative. Confirms the attack is imminent. Says the chemist is personally overseeing final preparations from a command post." The operative used a code word for the location, Scorpion's Nest. The room went silent. Every analyst began searching databases for the code word. Coming up empty. A voice spoke from the back of the TOC, quiet but clear. The geological formation above the subterranean void is a scaled rock outcropping. It resembles a scorpion's tail. It's a logical source for the codename. Sienna stood in the doorway, Hollis beside her. She was wearing a clean uniform, but her eyes were hollow from lack of sleep. She looked like a ghost herself. Kincaid turned slowly. "How would you know that?" "It's in the topographical survey data, attached to the drone logs I was assigned to review, sir." The pieces clicked into place, audibly, like tumblers in a lock. The room held its breath. Kincaid stared at her, at this small, unremarkable woman who had just connected dots no one else had seen. Lieutenant Colonel Shepard was reading the report on Morris's tablet. His face had gone pale. "Sir, the location is at the extreme edge of our engagement envelope, 1,950 meters from the nearest viable overwatch position. It's in a narrow canyon with unpredictable wind shears." He looked up. "Airstrike is too risky. The bunker is deep. We can't guarantee a penetration hit without better terminal guidance. And there's a civilian village 200 meters to the east." "What about a ground team?" Kincaid demanded. The TOC battle captain shook his head. 8 hours minimum to position a team with approach and breach equipment. The chemist will be gone long before we arrive. The informant said he's moving locations after the attack is executed. "Then we need a sniper team." "Sir," the battle captain said carefully, "no team on this FOB is rated for a shot at that distance. Not with the atmospheric conditions. Canyon winds, thermal distortion. The probability of a first-round hit is less than 5%. 5% was no chance at all. A miss would alert the chemist. He would vanish. The attack would proceed. 412 people would die." Sienna spoke again, same quiet, measured tone. "The probability is not 5%. My ballistic solution has a 91% probability of a first-round hit through the designated aperture." A murmur went through the TOC. 91%. At nearly 2 kilometers. In a canyon. It was an impossible claim. Kincaid found his voice. "Aperture? What aperture?" Sienna stepped forward. Morris handed her the tablet. She pulled up an image, displayed it on the main screen. The ground-penetrating radar shows a ventilation shaft. It's shielded by the rock formation, but thermal imaging from 0400 hours, when cool desert air creates maximum temperature differential, shows a faint heat plume. The shaft is 14 inches in diameter. It leads directly to the primary command chamber 20 feet below the surface. She zoomed in, enhanced the image. A thermal bloom. Faint, almost invisible, but there. The chemist will have to pass this shaft to reach his communications equipment. The geolocation data shows his activity pattern. He checks his long-range antenna array every day before a major operation. He'll surface within the next 6 hours. Kincaid stared at the screen, then at her. The fury in his eyes was being replaced by something else. Disbelief, confusion, a dawning, terrible understanding. He saw the phoenix patch on her sleeve, the quiet certainty in her posture, the absolute confidence in her voice. "How do you propose to make that shot?" His voice was strained. "And how do you defeat his security measures? His network will detect any drone or laser rangefinder we put near him. We won't use active emissions. I've mapped his frequency hopping sequence from the historical data. I can predict its behavior. Immediately prior to the shot, I'll broadcast a polymorphic signal that mimics their own network's handshake protocol. For approximately 300 milliseconds, their security system will register my transmission as friendly. It will create a window. In that window, the shot will be taken. The TOC was silent. She was proposing to hack an enemy network with a single perfectly timed radio burst. Create a momentary blind spot for a bullet to travel through. Shepard spoke. And the ballistics? The wind in that canyon is a nightmare. The wind is not random, Colonel. It's a system. The canyon's topology creates a cyclical vortex. I've modeled it based on the atmospheric data from the assignment you gave me. The cycle repeats every 82 seconds. There's a 6-second window at the apex of the cycle where crosswind velocity drops to near zero. That's the firing window. She had turned her punishment into the key to the entire operation. The garbage data Kincaid had buried her in was the very source of her solution. She had seen the entire battlefield, radio waves, wind patterns, geological formations, enemy behavior patterns, and synthesized it all into a single moment of lethal precision. General Kincaid stood frozen. Every eye in the TOC was on him. His own methods had failed. The clock was ticking, 16 hours until 400 people died. Before him stood a captain he had publicly humiliated, offering an impossible solution derived from the very task he had given her as punishment. To refuse was to admit defeat. To accept was to stake his career on a woman he had dismissed as incompetent. The silence stretched. 10 seconds. 20. Finally, Kincaid looked at Captain Morris. When he spoke, his voice was tight, controlled. Get her whatever she needs. He turned to Sienna, met her eyes directly for the first time. But if you miss, Captain, if you miss, I'll have your bars. Sienna's expression did not change. Her voice, when she spoke, was flat, absolute. I won't miss, sir. I never do. 20 minutes after the briefing, Sienna and Hollis were escorted to General Kincaid's private office. The TOC had been chaos. Now behind closed doors came the reckoning. Captain Morris had been dismissed. Lieutenant Colonel Shepard remained, witness to what would unfold. This was where decisions that couldn't be unmade were made. The air in General Kincaid's office was thick with tension, the kind that came before actions that could not be recalled. Sienna stood at attention before his desk, Hollis beside her. Kincaid sat behind his desk, a tablet computer in front of him. His hands were flat on either side of it, as if he was bracing himself. Shepard stood in the corner, arms crossed, face carefully neutral. Before I authorize this operation, Kincaid said slowly, I need to understand exactly who I'm sending into the field. Captain Morris said your file is classified. Special Access Program. That's correct, sir. I've requested your complete service record through JSOC. Expedited channels. Command priority. Yes, sir. Kincaid looked down at the tablet, his jaw tightened. It arrived 10 minutes ago. He pressed a button. The tablet screen glowed. He began to read, and with each line his expression changed, shifted, transformed. Confusion became shock. Shock became something like horror. Task Force Phantom, he read aloud. Tier 1 Special Operations Unit. Established 1983. Primary mission. Long-range interdiction and signals intelligence in denied areas. Current strength, classified. Historical strength, 52 operators. He looked up. 52 operators in 40 years. That's not a unit. That's a myth. Sienna said nothing. Kincaid continued reading. His voice lost volume as he went on, became quieter, almost reverent. Confirmed kills, 47. All classified operations. He stopped, read the number again. 47. Shepard pushed off the wall, walked closer. Sir? Kincaid turned the tablet so Shepard could see. The colonel's face went white. Longest confirmed kill, Kincaid continued, 2,847 meters. Kabul, 6 months ago. Target was He stopped. The rest of the line was redacted. High-value target successfully neutralized. He scrolled down. The list went on and on. Syria, Yemen, Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq. 23 high-value targets eliminated. Distinguished Service Cross for... The citation was redacted. 2 silver stars, Bronze Star with Valor, Purple Heart, 3 times. He looked at Sienna, really looked at her. This small woman who barely filled out her uniform, who looked like she should be teaching elementary school, not executing missions that didn't officially exist. You've been shot 3 times. Yes, sir. Shrapnel twice, small arms once. All non-critical. Non-critical, Kincaid repeated. He shook his head. He kept reading. Qualifications: Army Ranger School, honor graduate, survival, evasion, resistance, escape. Top 10%. Advanced Sniper Course, distinguished graduate. Signals Intelligence Analyst Course, Special Operations Communications Course. He looked up again. You're a ranger? Yes, sir. Women weren't allowed in ranger school until 2015. I attended in 2016, sir. Second class to include female candidates. Kincaid scrolled further. His breathing had changed, become shallow. Phoenix insignia. Authorized for wear by active Task Force Phantom operators. Authorization signed by... He stopped. The Secretary of Defense. Personally. He set the tablet down, rubbed his face with both hands. There's a note here from JSOC Command. It says all inquiries regarding Task Force Phantom or its personnel must be directed to the undersigned. Local commanders are not authorized to reassign, restrict, or otherwise interfere with Phantom operations. Unit patch designation, Fides in Tenebris, is recognized under Special Access Program protocols. The room was silent. Kincaid looked at Shepard. The colonel's face had gone from white to gray. I dressed her down in front of 200 soldiers, Kincaid said quietly. I ordered her to remove a badge authorized by the Secretary of Defense. I gave her a punishment assignment that should have been impossible to complete. He stood, walked to his window, looked out over the FOB, his kingdom, his command, his spectacular failure of judgment. How many living Phantom operators are there? He asked without turning around. 3, sir, Sienna said, out of 52 total. 49 dead. Yes, sir. In 40 years. Yes, sir. Kincaid turned around. His eyes were different now. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like fear. There's a final notation in your file, he said. Personal information, family history. He picked up the tablet again, read slowly. Father, Captain Nathaniel Blackwell, United States Army, Ranger qualified, designated marksman, killed in action, Mogadishu, Somalia, October 4th, 1993, Operation Gothic Serpent. His voice caught. 21 confirmed enemy kills before his death. Awarded the Silver Star posthumously. Kincaid looked at the photo on his desk. Young soldier, Korean War uniform. His father. Captain Blackwell was killed by an enemy sniper during the Battle of Mogadishu. You were 3 years old. Yes, sir. The file says you carry his rifle. Yes, sir. How many kills have you added to his 21? 27, sir, as of 6 months ago. Kincaid walked back to his desk, sat down heavily. He looked old suddenly, tired. My father was Sergeant Major Thomas Kincaid. He died at Pork Chop Hill, Korea, 1953, killed by an enemy sniper. I was 4 months old. Sienna's eyes flickered. A micro-expression. Recognition. Understanding. We're both children of men who died in wars we can barely remember, Kincaid said. Killed by snipers. And you became... He gestured at the tablet, at the list of kills, the impossible record. You became what killed both our fathers. Yes, sir. The irony hung in the air between them, heavy, undeniable. Shepard cleared his throat. Sir, if word gets out about how you treated her, my career is the least of my concerns right now, Colonel. Kincaid stood again, walked around the desk, stopped in front of Sienna. I owe you an apology, Captain, a profound one, but it will have to wait. Right now, I need you to do what you do best. Save lives. Understood, sir. You said 91% probability. What affects the other 9%? Wind variability outside the predicted model. Equipment malfunction. Target deviation from expected behavior. Divine intervention. Kincaid almost smiled. Almost. What's your actual success rate? First round hits at extreme range. Sienna met his eyes. 47 for 47, sir. 100%. The room went silent again. Shepard looked like he might be sick. Then get it done, Captain. Kincaid offered his hand. Sienna shook it. His grip was firm, respectful, the handshake of equals. Whatever you need, whatever your team requires, you have it. Thank you, sir. As Sienna and Hollis left the office, Kincaid called after them. Captain Blackwell. She turned. Don't miss. I won't, sir. She touched 2 fingers to her brow in an informal salute. I never do. The door closed behind them. In the office, Kincaid sank into his chair, looked at Shepard. I just sent a woman with 47 kills to make an impossible shot that will save 400 lives or end my career. Yes, sir. Based on data analysis from a punishment assignment I gave her because I thought she was wearing fake insignia. Yes, sir. And she's carrying her dead father's rifle, just like I keep my father's badge. Kincaid opened his desk drawer, pulled out a small wooden box. Inside was a combat infantryman badge, tarnished silver, Korean War era. The only thing he had from a father he never knew. We're haunted by the same ghosts, Marcus, just different wars. Shepard had no answer for that. Outside, Hollis waited until they were 50 meters from the TOC before speaking. He read your whole file? Appears so. And now he knows you're the most lethal person on this FOB. The data suggests that conclusion. Hollis laughed, a short, sharp sound. The data. You just made a 1-star general recalibrate his entire worldview, and you're talking about data. It's what I do. No, Cap. What you do is impossible shots at impossible distances. The data analysis is just foreplay. This time, Sienna did smile. Barely, a ghost of expression. They reached the equipment connex, a shipping container converted into an armory. The door was already open. A staff sergeant stood waiting with a clipboard and a nervous expression. Captain Blackwell, General Kincaid sent word. Whatever you need. I need my rifle. It's in my wall locker in CHU-14. Already retrieved, ma'am. He gestured inside. Her father's rifle case sat on a clean table. Beside it was an array of equipment. Rangefinders, night vision, communications gear, ammunition. Sienna opened the case. The rifle lay nested in foam. A custom .338 Lapua Magnum. Built in 1992, carried through Mogadishu in 93, 21 kills under her father's hands, 27 under hers. The wood stock was worn smooth. The barrel showed the patina of careful maintenance over 3 decades. The scope was newer, a Leopold Mark V HD, but the rings that held it were original. Her father's hands had touched them. She lifted the rifle free, checked the action. Smooth. Perfect. She had cleaned it 2 days ago, but she would clean it again. And again before the mission. Ritual mattered. Hollis was selecting ammunition. Federal premium. 250 grain Sierra Match King bullets. He filled 4 magazines. 20 rounds total. They would only need 1, but redundancy was survival. We need ballistic data for current atmospheric conditions, Sienna said. Temperature, pressure, humidity. Updated every 30 minutes until we're on target. I'll coordinate with the weather section, the staff sergeant said, making notes. And I need the updated satellite imagery, thermal and visual. Last 48 hours. Also ground-penetrating radar logs if there are any newer passes. Yes, ma'am. Communication suite, encrypted, frequency hopping capable, and the electronic warfare package from our kit. The sergeant's pen stopped. Ma'am, I'm not sure I'm cleared for. Call Captain Morris. He'll authorize it. Yes, ma'am. Sienna turned to Hollis. How long to prep? He checked his watch. Gear check, route planning, final brief, 4 hours. The chemist's pattern suggests he'll surface between 1300 and 1500. We need to be in position by 1200. Infiltration time is 8 hours. That means we move at 0400 tomorrow. Sienna nodded, did the math. It was currently 1600. 12 hours until movement. Time to prepare, to rest, to enter the mental space required for what came next. I'll be in the SCIF running the final atmospheric models, she said. Find me at 2300 for final brief. Roger that. She picked up her father's rifle, cradled it like a child, walked back out into the heat of the Afghan afternoon. The sun was beginning its descent. The mountains to the west were backlit, dark silhouettes against burning sky. Somewhere out there, 1950 meters away, the chemist sat in his bunker, planning murder, confident in his security, his defenses, his invisibility. He did not know that a ghost was coming for him, carried on wind and mathematics and the legacy of dead fathers. At 0400 hours, the FOB was a study in darkness and whispers. Sienna and Hollis moved through the pre-dawn cold toward the motor pool. They wore full combat loads, plate carriers, helmets. Hollis carried the spotting scope, the communications equipment, the backup rifle. Sienna carried her father's weapon and nothing else. A lone Humvee waited, engine running. The driver was a young private who looked 12 years old. He didn't speak, just drove them to the south gate. The gate guards waved them through. No questions. Orders from the top. They dismounted outside the wire. The Humvee turned around and disappeared back into the FOB. Sienna and Hollis were alone now. In Indian country, hostile territory, the war. The landscape was moonrock in shadow. A dead world waiting for the sun. They moved east toward the mountains, using night vision to navigate the broken ground. The first hour was easy terrain. Wadis and dry stream beds. They made good time. The second hour, the ground became more difficult. Larger rocks, steeper grades. They slowed, moved carefully. Sound discipline absolute. At 0700, they went prone. An enemy patrol passed 400 meters to their north. 6 men, AK-47s, moving lazy and confident. This was their territory. They owned it. Sienna and Hollis were invisible, ghosts in the rocks. They waited 20 minutes after the patrol passed before moving again. The sun rose at 0745. Temperature began climbing immediately. By 0900, it was 90 degrees. By 1000, it was 105. They covered 8 kilometers in 6 hours. Every meter earned, every step calculated. At 1000 hours, they reached the final overwatch position, a rocky ledge overlooking a deep canyon. The position Sienna had selected from satellite imagery. From here, the distance to the chemist's bunker was exactly 1,950 meters, confirmed by laser rangefinder. 1.95 kilometers, 1.21 miles. The target area was a jumble of rocks, scaly formations that did, indeed, look like a scorpion's tail. The bunker entrance was invisible, the camouflage perfect, but Sienna knew where it was, down to the meter. They built a hide, arranged rocks to create a natural blind, laid out a camouflage net that matched the surrounding terrain, became part of the landscape. Hollis set up the spotting scope, began taking atmospheric readings, temperature, humidity, barometric pressure. wind speed, and direction. Every variable that would affect a bullet traveling almost 2 kilometers. Sienna assembled her rifle. Each component fitted together with practiced precision. Stock, action, barrel, scope, magazine. She chambered a round, ejected it, checked the chamber, chambered it again. The ritual of preparation. At 1100 hours they were ready. The hide was complete, the equipment positioned. All that remained was the weight. The temperature climbed. 1100 brought 112 degrees. By noon it was 116. The heat was physical, oppressive. The air shimmered like water. Sienna lay behind her rifle in the prone position. The weapon rested on a small bipod. Her eye was to the scope. Through the magnified optics, the world became a circle of distorted light. The mirage was extreme. Heat waves rising from the rocks, creating the illusion that the entire landscape was melting. To shoot through mirage was to shoot through chaos. The bullet's path would be bent, twisted, made unpredictable. But mirage was not random. It was a system. It had patterns, cycles. And Sienna had spent 3 hours modeling those patterns from historical data. Hollis lay beside her, his eye to the spotting scope. His voice was low, constant, a stream of information. Temperature is 116 Fahrenheit, barometric pressure 2985 and falling. Humidity 7%. Wind is 14 miles per hour, gusting to 19. Direction variable, currently from 030 degrees. Sienna's breathing was controlled. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds empty. Her heart rate had dropped to 54 beats per minute. She was entering the space, the quiet place where there was no doubt, no fear, no humanity, only the shot. At 12:47 hours, her electronic warfare device picked up a new signal. Brief, encrypted, the same signature she had found in the historical data. "He's powering up," she said. "Nothing visible yet," Hollis replied. "Bunker is sealed." They waited. Minutes stretched. The sun climbed higher. The temperature peaked at 118 degrees. At 12:53, Sienna's device registered another signal, longer this time, a handshake protocol. The chemist network coming online, preparing for communication. "He's getting ready to surface," Sienna said, "running counter-surveillance first. He knows something's wrong. He suspects, but his arrogance will win. It always does." At 1300 hours, the bunker door opened. A section of rock that looked like every other section of rock shifted, slid aside on hidden rails, darkness visible beyond. "Contact," Hollis said. "I have movement." A figure emerged, tall, bearded, moving cautiously. He was flanked by 4 bodyguards, all armed, all scanning the surrounding terrain with practiced wariness. "Target acquired," Hollis continued. "Adult male, approximately 6 feet tall, dark beard, moving toward the satellite array." Sienna's crosshairs found him. Through the scope, he was a shimmering figure in the heat. She could see the individual hairs of his beard, the texture of his clothing, the weapon slung across his back. "Range is 1950 meters, Hollis said, confirmed by laser. Sienna began her calculations. She had already done them 100 times, but she did them again. Elevation, windage, temperature, pressure, Coriolis effect, spin drift, every variable that physics demanded. She adjusted her scope. Click, click, click. 143 clicks of elevation, 13 clicks of windage. Each click represented a minute of angle, a precise mathematical adjustment. But the windage was temporary, holding for the wind window, waiting for the canyon vortex to cycle. "He's moving to the equipment," Hollis said. 4 bodyguards, spread pattern. They're good, professional. Through her scope, Sienna watched the chemist. He moved with confidence, arrogance. This was his fortress, his sanctuary, He had evaded capture for 14 months, survived 3 kill operations. He believed himself untouchable. Wind is building, Hollis said. 16 miles per hour. 19, 21. The mirage was a river of distortion now. Heat waves flowing across her field of view like water. To shoot into this was suicide. The bullet would be pushed, pulled, thrown off course by invisible currents. But Sienna had modeled the vortex. She knew its rhythm, 82 seconds, peak to peak, a cycle as reliable as a heartbeat. Vortex is building, Hollis said, 23 miles per hour, 25, 27. The target stopped at the satellite dish, began making adjustments. He would be there for perhaps 90 seconds. Then he would return to the bunker. The window was closing. Wind peaking, Hollis said. 2-9 sustained, 3-1 gust. The river of heat was a torrent now, a flood, the entire canyon dancing in thermal chaos. And then, precisely as Sienna's model had predicted, the wind began to drop. Vortex declining, Hollis said. His voice was tight. 27, 24, 21. The mirage began to straighten, the river slowing, becoming placid. 18, 15, 12. Sienna's thumb moved to the electronic warfare device mounted to her rifle. A custom piece of equipment, classified, built by engineers who understood radio waves the way she understood wind. Wind at 10, Hollis said. 8, 6. The mirage was nearly still now. The river had stopped flowing. A perfect window. 6 seconds, maybe 7. 5 miles per hour, Hollis said. 4, 3. Sienna's thumb pressed the button. The device emitted a 310 millisecond burst of polymorphic code, a digital ghost that screamed across the canyon at the speed of light. For 0.4 seconds, the chemist's security network registered the burst as a friendly signal, a routine handshake, nothing to alert on. The system was blind. Simultaneously, Sienna's lungs exhaled, not all the way, half breath, the way her father had taught her on a ranch in Montana 23 years ago. Everything vanished. The canyon, the heat, the wind, the war, all ceased to exist. There was only the reticle and the target and the trigger. The crosshairs were perfectly steady, floating on his center mass, the natural pause between heartbeats. She pressed the trigger. The rifle pushed back against her shoulder. A controlled, violent impulse. The sound was a sharp crack immediately swallowed by distance and emptiness. The 255-grain bullet left the muzzle at 2,940 feet per second, spinning at thousands of revolutions per minute, a tiny missile governed by immutable laws. Sienna did not watch the impact. Her job was done. She was already working the bolt, ejecting the spent casing. It tumbled in the air, caught the sunlight, fell among the rocks, chambering a new round, scanning for threats. Hollis watched through the spotting scope. He did not blink, did not breathe. Flight time 2.8 seconds, he murmured. The bullet climbed on its arc, reached the apex of its trajectory 900 meters downrange, began to descend. The wind pushed it, not much, just enough. The calculations held. At 1,950 meters, traveling at 890 feet per second, the bullet arrived. Impact! Hollis's voice cracked with emotion. Center mass! He's down! Target is down! Through his spotting scope, he watched the chemist collapse. The man simply folded, one moment standing, the next moment on the ground. The bodyguards froze, confused, scanning the empty landscape for a threat they could not see. One of them grabbed the chemist's arm, began dragging him toward the bunker. The others provided cover, firing blindly at nothing. Their AK-47s sputtered uselessly. They had no idea where the shot had come from. No idea a sniper could even reach them from this distance. They pulled the body inside. The camouflage door slid shut. The rocks became rocks again. At FOB Stryker, a signals analyst shouted, "Sir, The chemist command network just flatlined. Signal is gone. He's offline. The operations center erupted. Cheers, backslaps, relief flooding through 200 pounds of tension. General Kincaid stood at the main display, watching the data feeds, the thermal signature from the bunker, the radio frequency intercepts, all of it confirming what his gut already knew. The ghost had killed the ghost. On the rocky ledge, Sienna lowered her eye from the scope, looked at Hollis. Confirmed kill? Confirmed. Clean hit. He's down. She nodded once, began breaking down her rifle. Hollis was collapsing the spotting scope, packing equipment. They had to move. The bodyguards might call for reinforcements. The location was compromised. That's 48, Hollis said. 48 for 48. You know that's not human, right? The math is sound. The math, he laughed, shook his head. One day you're going to miss, just so you can remember you're mortal. Not today. They were packed in 4 minutes, erased the hide in 6. Began moving west, back toward the FOB, when Sienna's electronic warfare device chirped. She stopped, pulled it from her kit, looked at the screen. A new signal, encrypted, point-to-point communication, emanating from inside the bunker, transmitting to a receiver somewhere to the east. She analyzed the signature, the protocol, the encryption pattern. Her face changed, a micro-expression that Hollis had learned to read over 6 deployments. What? That's not the chemist's standard communication profile. So the chemist always uses satellite uplink for secure communications. This is ground-based relay, different encryption, different protocol. She pulled up the thermal data from the bunker, still feeding to her tactical display, replayed the last 60 seconds, enhanced the imagery. There, just before the door closed, a second figure, standing in the entrance, watching. The body profile was wrong. Too short, too stocky. Not the man she had shot. Hollis, that wasn't him. What? The target I hit was a decoy, a body double. Hollis stared at her. You're sure? She showed him the thermal image, the body dimensions, the comparison to known intelligence photos of the chemist. 97% certainty. The man I shot was approximately 2 inches taller and 30 pounds lighter than the chemist's known parameters. Son of a bitch, he used a double. And now he knows we're here. He knows someone found him. As if to confirm her words, the electronic warfare device registered another signal, then another. The chemist's network going into emergency protocols, scrambling, alerting, and then the world exploded. Mortar fire. The first round impacted 200 meters to their north, the second, 150 meters, the third, 100. The chemist was bracketing their position. His security team had sophisticated direction-finding equipment. They were triangulating based on the shot's acoustic signature and their own electronic signatures. Move! Hollis shouted. They ran. Full sprint across broken ground. The mortars followed. Explosions walking toward them. 70 meters. 50. 30. Sienna's radio crackled. Operations Center. Sniper 1, this is TOC. We show you under fire. Exfil Bird is inbound. ETA 6 minutes. Can you make the emergency pickup zone? Negative, Sienna said between breaths. We're 4 clicks out. We won't make it. Another mortar round. 20 meters behind them. Shrapnel whined through the air. A piece caught Hollis's pack, tore through the fabric. Then you better run faster, the radio operator said, because the chemist just went active on every channel. He's calling in every fighter in the valley. You've got about 10 minutes before this whole area is swarming. Sienna looked at Hollis. He was already pulling equipment from his pack, dropping weight. She did the same. Kept only her rifle, ammunition, and the electronic warfare device. They ran. Behind them, the bunker door opened again, and this time the man who emerged was the right height, the right build, the real chemist. He stood in the entrance with binoculars, scanning the western ridge, searching for the shooter who had found his perfect hiding place. Sienna saw him through her rifle scope, 1,950 meters. But the shot parameters were impossible now. The wind was chaos. The mortar explosions had disrupted all atmospheric models. The mirage was completely distorted. To take the shot would be to rely on pure instinct, pure feel. No calculations, no models. Just 27 kills worth of muscle memory and her father's ghost guiding the bullet. Hollis saw her stop, saw her bringing the rifle up. Sienna, no, we don't have time. He's right there. The wind is insane. You can't calculate this. I don't need to calculate it. She dropped prone, rifle shouldered, eye to scope. The chemist was still searching with his binoculars. 45 seconds, maybe 60, then he would disappear forever. The wind was gusting above 30 miles per hour. Variable direction. The mirage was a storm. Every rule of ballistics said this shot was impossible. But Sienna had made 47 impossible shots. Her father had made 21. The rifle between them had 68 kills. 68 moments of mathematics meeting intuition, meeting fate. She found him in the scope, watched the wind, felt its patterns in ways she could not explain. The same way a musician hears a melody before it exists. She inhaled, held. Her heart rate was 140, too high, adrenaline flooding her system. She forced it down. 60, 58. The crosshairs settled on his head, center forehead, the most difficult shot, the smallest target, but also the most certain kill. She exhaled half a breath, pressed the trigger. The world held still. The bullet flew. Hollis watched through the spotting scope, his hands shaking. Flight time. Oh, Christ, the wind. 2.8 seconds. The bullet fighting through turbulent air, being pushed, pulled, thrown off course and correcting, and being thrown again. It should have missed by meters. By mathematics and physics and every law of ballistics, it should have missed. It did not miss. Impact, Hollis screamed. Headshot! Jesus Christ, Sienna, headshot! The chemist dropped. Not like the decoy, not folded. He went down like a switch had been thrown. Instant, permanent. The bodyguards dove for cover. Two of them grabbed the body, dragged it inside, the bunker door sealed. Confirmed kill, Hollis said. His voice was shaking. Headshot at 1950 meters in 30-mile-per-hour variable wind. That's not possible. You're not human. Sienna was already moving, running west. Hollis scrambled to follow. They made the emergency pickup zone with 90 seconds to spare. The helicopter was coming in hot, taking sporadic fire from enemy fighters converging on the area. They threw themselves aboard. The bird pulled pitch and climbed hard, banking away from the canyon. Sienna sat on the deck, her father's rifle across her knees. Her hands were steady, her breathing controlled. Hollis sat across from her, staring. 48 for 48, he said. But that last one, that shouldn't have worked. Sienna looked at him, then down at her rifle, touched the worn stock. My father was with me. Hollis had no answer for that. The helicopter climbed into the clear Afghan sky, carrying its ghosts home. The helicopter touched down at FOB Stryker at 15:17 hours. The rotors were still spinning when General Kincaid appeared at the edge of the landing zone. He stood alone, no entourage, no aides. Just a 62-year-old general waiting for confirmation that 400 lives had been saved. Sienna stepped off the ramp first. Her uniform was covered in dust, her face streaked with sweat and grime. She carried her father's rifle in one hand, the electronic warfare device in the other. She looked like she had been through a war, which in the span of 6 hours she had. Kincaid walked toward her. His face was unreadable. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough to speak without shouting over the helicopter noise, far enough to maintain the formal distance between general and captain. Status? He asked. Target eliminated, sir. The chemist is confirmed KIA. Kincaid's shoulders dropped. A weight lifting that had been there for 14 months. 89 coalition deaths, countless wounded. A ghost that had haunted his entire command. Gone. You're certain? I put a bullet through his head at 1,950 meters while under mortar fire in 30-mile-per-hour variable wind. I'm certain. Kincaid stared at her, at this small, dusty woman who spoke of impossible shots the way other people discuss the weather. Intelligence is analyzing the intercepts now, he said, but preliminary reports suggest the chemist wasn't planning one attack. He was coordinating 3 simultaneous VBIEDs. The convoy was just the opening move. Yes, sir. I found references to the other operations in his communication patterns. Target sets included the Provincial Government Center and a forward medical facility. Estimated combined casualties were 1,200 plus. Kincaid's face went pale. 1,200. The data analysis from Sector Gamma revealed his entire operational network. The punishment assignment you gave me provided the pattern recognition necessary to map his complete infrastructure. The words hung between them. The punishment assignment. The task designed to break her, to humiliate her, had become the key to saving 1,200 lives. Kincaid opened his mouth, closed it. No words were adequate. Debrief in 1 hour, he finally said. Clean up, get some food, then we talk. Yes, sir. Hollis had appeared beside her. He looked worse than Sienna. His face was gray with exhaustion, his hands still trembling slightly from adrenaline. Master Sergeant, Kincaid said, hell of a job out there. Thank you, sir, but I just watched. She made the shots. Kincaid nodded, turned and walked back toward the TOC. His stride was different, less rigid, like something inside him had fundamentally shifted. Sienna and Hollis walked to their CHUs in silence. The base had the strange quiet that comes after crisis. Soldiers moving with purpose, but without urgency. The tension that had gripped the FOB for the past 24 hours was evaporating. At her door, Hollis stopped. That second shot, he said. I've been your spotter for 6 deployments, 38 kills together. I've never seen anything like that. The win was impossible. The mirage was chaos. You made that shot on pure feel. The rifle knows the way. That's not an answer. Sienna looked at him, really looked at him. This man who had been with her through Syria, Yemen, Iraq, Afghanistan twice, and Somalia, who had never once questioned her capability, who had carried her bleeding body off a rooftop in Damascus, who had earned her trust through action, not words. My father made 21 kills with this rifle, she said quietly. I've made 27, 48 total. Every time I shoot, I feel his hands on mine, guiding, correcting. That second shot, when the math said it was impossible, I felt him stronger than ever, like he was sighting the target himself. Hollis was quiet for a long moment. You believe in ghosts? I am a ghost, Hollis. We all are. Task Force Phantom. Fides in tenebris. Faith in darkness. We operate in the shadows, and when we die, we stay there. 49 operators before me, all dead, all still watching. She touched the Phoenix patch on her sleeve. This isn't just a badge, it's a promise to carry them forward, to add to the legacy, to never stop until we join them. That's dark, Cap. It's true. Hollis shook his head, managed a tired smile. Get some rest. I'll see you at the debrief. Inside her CHU, Sienna stripped off her gear, the plate carrier, the helmet, the boots. She stood under the shower for 20 minutes, letting the cold water wash away the dust and sweat and cordite residue. When she was clean, she sat on her bed in a towel and disassembled her father's rifle. Every component removed with reverence. She cleaned each piece, oiled it, inspected for wear or damage, found none. The weapon was as perfect as the day it was built. She reassembled it slowly, letting the ritual calm her mind. This rifle had been to Mogadishu, had killed 21 enemy fighters in the Battle of the Black Sea, had been carried by her father through streets that ran with blood, and then it had been shipped home in a box with his effects, given to a 3-year-old girl who would not understand for another decade what it meant, what it represented, what it demanded. She had fired her first shot with this rifle at age 12, a deer at 200 yards in the Montana mountains. Her father's friend, a retired ranger named Patterson, had taught her, told her stories about Nathaniel Blackwell, about his skill, his courage, his death. "Your daddy was the best natural shooter I ever saw," Patterson had said. "Like he could see the bullet's path before he pulled the trigger. You got his eyes, girl. His hands. Maybe you got his gift too." She had. God help her, she had. At 16:45 hours, she dressed in a fresh uniform, pinned her rank, attached the Phoenix patch with care, walked to the TOC. The operations center had transformed. The chaos from this morning was gone, replaced by efficient calm. Analysts working at terminals, officers reviewing reports, the rhythm of a headquarters that had just survived a crisis. General Kincaid was in the briefing room, a secure space within the TOC reserved for classified discussions. Lieutenant Colonel Shepard was there, Captain Morris, the intelligence officer, the operations officer, 6 senior leaders who ran the FOB, and Sienna and Hollis. They stood at attention while Kincaid reviewed a classified message on his tablet. When he finished reading, he set it down and looked at them. The National Security Agency has confirmed through multiple technical means that the individual eliminated at 13:12 hours today was Rashid al-Kuwaiti, known as the Chemist. DNA analysis from tissue samples, voice print analysis from archived intercepts, facial recognition from drone footage. It's him. He's dead. A murmur went through the room. Relief, satisfaction, the kind that comes from eliminating a threat that has killed too many. Furthermore, Kincaid continued, analysis of his bunker complex recovered extensive intelligence, plans for 3 coordinated attacks, target sets including Route Phoenix Convoy, the provincial government building, and Forward Operating Base Henderson. Combined explosive yield estimated at 4,000 pounds of homemade explosives. Estimated casualties if successful, between 1,200 and 1,500 personnel. The room went silent. 1,500 people, soldiers, contractors, local nationals, gone in 3 explosions, prevented by 1 woman with a rifle. Kincaid stood, walked to the front of the room. He was carrying a folder. "Captain Blackwell, step forward." Sienna moved to the center of the room, stood at attention. "I owe you an apology," Kincaid said. His voice was formal, official, but there was emotion beneath it. Not just for questioning your insignia, not just for the punishment assignment, but for my failure to see the warrior standing in front of me. He opened the folder, began reading. "Your service record, now partially declassified for this briefing, shows 48 confirmed combat eliminations across 5 countries. Distinguished Service Cross for actions in Syria that remain classified. 2 Silver Stars. Bronze Star with Valor. 3 Purple Hearts. You are a graduate of Ranger School, SEER, Advanced Sniper Course, and multiple intelligence schools. You hold the longest confirmed kill shot in Task Force Phantom history. 2,847 meters. He looked up. You are one of 3 living members of a unit that has fielded 52 operators in 40 years. 49 of your predecessors are dead. The Phoenix patch you wear is authorized personally by the Secretary of Defense and represents a legacy of sacrifice that few in this room can comprehend. He closed the folder. I am a general officer with 40 years of service. I have commanded men and women in combat across 4 decades, and I have never, in my entire career, encountered an operator of your caliber. He paused, the weight of his next words visible on his face. 3 days ago, I publicly humiliated you in the dining facility. I ordered you to remove insignia you had earned through blood and sacrifice. I gave you an impossible assignment as punishment for having the audacity to be better than I could imagine." His voice dropped lower. "And you responded by saving 1,200 lives." The room was absolutely silent, every person barely breathing. "My father was Sergeant Major Thomas Kincaid. He was killed at Pork Chop Hill in Korea by an enemy sniper. I was 4 months old. I never knew him. I have spent my entire life trying to be worthy of a man I can barely remember." He pulled something from his pocket, a small wooden box. "Your father was Captain Nathaniel Blackwell, killed in Mogadishu by an enemy sniper. You were 3 years old. You carry his rifle. You have added 27 kills to his 21. He opened the box. Inside was a combat infantryman badge, tarnished silver, Korean War era. This was my father's. It's one of 3 things I have from him. The others are a letter he wrote to my mother before he died, and a photograph I've never seen him in person to compare to." Kincaid removed the badge from the box, held it. "We are both children of warriors we never truly knew, both haunted by their ghosts, both trying to honor their sacrifice." He stepped closer to Sienna, the general and the captain, the old warrior and the young one. 2 people connected by the same loss across different wars. "I dishonored your father's sacrifice by dishonoring you," Kincaid said. His voice was rough with emotion. "I saw a woman, a small woman, and I assumed weakness. I saw a patch I didn't recognize and assumed fraud. I was wrong. Catastrophically, unforgivably wrong." He raised the combat infantryman badge. "This badge represents infantry combat, close engagement with the enemy, the fundamental experience of ground warfare. My father earned it fighting through hell in Korea. I wear his badge because I never earned my own. I was an officer. We wear different insignia." He reached up, pinned the badge on Sienna's uniform, above the phoenix patch, the silver against the dark fabric. "You have earned this more than I ever could. You've seen combat I can only imagine, made shots I can barely comprehend, carried a legacy that would crush most people." He stepped back, and then, in a moment that would be talked about on FOB Striker for years, Brigadier General Raymond Kincaid came to attention and rendered a slow, formal salute to Captain Sienna Blackwell. A general saluting a captain, reversing the entire military hierarchy, acknowledging not rank but worth, not position but capability, not authority but respect earned through action. The room held its breath. Then one by one, every officer present stood and saluted. Lieutenant Colonel Shepard, Captain Morris, the intelligence officer, the operations officer, all of them rendering honors to a woman they had underestimated. Sienna returned the salute. Her movement was crisp, perfect, professional. But as her hand came down, a single tear rolled down her cheek. The first emotion she had shown in 3 days, the first crack in the perfect control. "Your father would be proud, Captain," Kincaid said softly, "and mine would be honored to have fought beside you." Sienna's voice, when she spoke, was tight, controlled. "Sir, your father died defending freedom against tyranny. He made the ultimate sacrifice. You've spent your life honoring that. The man you've become, the leader you are, would make him proud." Kincaid's eyes went red. He nodded, unable to speak. The briefing ended quietly, officers filing out, each stopping to shake Sienna's hand, to offer congratulations, to see the legend up close. When the room was empty except for Sienna, Hollis, and Kincaid, the general spoke again. "There's one more thing." He pulled out his tablet, showed Sienna a message. "From Joint Special Operations Command to Commander FOB Striker, subject, Medal of Honor, nomination request, immediate submission of recommendation task for Captain Sienna Blackwell, Task Force Phantom. Actions of 15 October 2018, Meet criteria for nation's highest award. Expect approval at highest levels. Sienna read it, handed the tablet back. No, sir. Kincaid blinked. No? I respectfully decline. Captain, this is the Medal of Honor. Men spend their entire careers hoping for this recognition. I'm not most men, sir. I'm a ghost. Task Force Phantom operates in darkness. We don't receive public recognition. We don't give speeches. We don't pin medals on dress uniforms and attend ceremonies. We do the work and we disappear. She touched the Phoenix patch. 49 operators before me received no medals, no recognition. They died in the shadows and stayed there. I won't dishonor their sacrifice by stepping into the light. Kincaid stared at her, then slowly nodded. I'll inform JSOC of your decision. They won't like it. They'll understand it, sir. It's who we are. 3 days later, Sienna sat in her CHU, cleaning her father's rifle for the last time at FOB Stryker. Her orders had come through. Reassignment to Syria. Departure in 72 hours. A knock at her door. She opened it to find General Kincaid, alone. No uniform jacket, just his combat shirt. He looked older without the formal trappings of rank. More human. May I come in, Captain? Of course, sir. He entered the small space, looked around at the Spartan organization, the precisely arranged gear, the complete absence of personal items except for the rifle case. I wanted to speak with you before you left, unofficially. Yes, sir. Kincaid sat on the single chair. Sienna remained standing. I've spent the last 3 days reviewing everything about your father, he said, reading his after-action reports from Somalia, talking to people who served with him, building a picture of a man I never knew, but who died the same way my father did. He pulled a folder from under his arm, handed it to her. Captain Nathaniel Blackwell, United States Army Rangers, deployed to Mogadishu in August 1993, designated marksman, 21 confirmed kills during the Battle of Mogadishu, October 3rd and 4th. Sienna opened the folder. Inside were documents she had never seen, official reports, sworn statements, photographs. He held a defensive position at the Olympic Hotel for 4 hours, Kincaid said, alone. After his team was forced to withdraw, he stayed behind to cover their escape. 21 enemy fighters killed. He was wounded twice, kept fighting. They found him with an empty rifle and 18 dead insurgents around his position. Kincaid's voice was rough. They gave him the Silver Star. He was 29 years old. You were 3. Sienna looked at a photograph. Young man, Ranger tab, holding the same rifle she now carried, smiling, alive. Her father, a ghost she had spent 25 years trying to know. I don't remember his voice, she said quietly. My mother remarried when I was 7. My stepfather was a good man, but he never talked about my father, said it was too painful. So I grew up with this rifle and a medal and a folded flag. No stories, no memories. Just the weight of a legacy I didn't understand. Do you understand it now? I understand that he was exceptional at killing, and that I inherited that. Whether that's a blessing or a curse, I still don't know. Kincaid stood, walked to the window, looked out at the base. My father's name was Thomas Kincaid. He was a sergeant major, fought at Pork Chop Hill for 5 days straight, hand-to-hand combat in the trenches. They said he killed at least 30 Chinese soldiers, maybe more. He was recommended for the Medal of Honor. They downgraded it to Silver Star because there weren't enough surviving witnesses to verify the count. He turned back to her. He died on the last day of the battle, sniper round. They told my mother he died instantly. She was 6 months pregnant with me. I was born into a world where my father was already a legend I could never meet. We're the same, Sienna said, children of ghosts. Yes, but there's a difference. I spent 40 years trying to be worthy of him. You've already surpassed yours. Sienna shook her head. I've surpassed his kill count. That's not the same as surpassing him. He died protecting his team. I've survived every mission. I don't know if that makes me better or just luckier. It makes you alive, which means you can still honor him, still carry the legacy forward. Kincaid pulled something else from his pocket, a letter, handwritten, old paper. This is the letter my father wrote to my mother before he died. I've read it 1,000 times, but there's one line that kept me going through 40 years of service. He opened it carefully, read aloud. If I don't come home, raise our son to be better than me. Not a better soldier, a better man. Teach him that strength without compassion is just violence, that courage without wisdom is just recklessness, that honor without humility is just pride. He folded the letter, put it away. Your father would say the same thing. He'd want you to be more than a weapon, to be a person. Sienna was quiet for a long time. I don't know how to be a person anymore, sir. I've been a ghost for so long. 48 kills, 3 countries this year alone. I see the world through crosshairs, calculate wind drift in my sleep. I can tell you the ballistic coefficient of 12 different ammunition types, but I can't remember the last time I laughed. Then maybe it's time to learn again. How? Kincaid smiled, sad and knowing. I don't have that answer. I've been a soldier for 40 years. I'm divorced. Haven't spoken to my daughter in 3 years. I sleep 4 hours a night because the ghosts of men I've lost keep me awake. I'm probably the last person who should give life advice. But you're giving it anyway. Because I don't want you to end up like me. 62 years old, alone, still trying to prove something to a father I never knew. You're 28. You have time to be more than this. Sienna looked at her father's rifle, at the Phoenix patch on her uniform, at the combat infantryman badge from Kincaid's father. Maybe after Syria, she said. Maybe. Kincaid stood, extended his hand. They shook, general and captain, father's son and father's daughter, 2 warriors bound by the same ghosts. Stay safe out there, Captain. You too, sir. He left. The door closed. Sienna was alone with her rifle and her thoughts. She opened her pack, pulled out a small leather journal, her father's, from Somalia. She had been carrying it for 6 years, reading his entries, trying to understand him through his words. The last entry was dated October 3rd, 1993, the day he died. Day 2 of the battle, 21 confirmed. The team withdrew. I stayed to cover. If I don't make it home, I hope someday someone finds this rifle and carries it forward. Not for revenge, not for glory, just to remember that we were here. We fought. We tried to make a difference. Captain N. Blackwell. Sienna picked up a pen, turned to the next blank page, the first entry in 25 years. Afghanistan, October 2018, 48 confirmed kills. I found your rifle, Dad. I carried it forward. Not for revenge, not for glory, just to honor you, to be worthy of the name Blackwell. I don't know if I've succeeded, but I've tried. Fides in tenebris, faith in darkness. I'll keep going until I find the light, or until I join you in the shadows. Your daughter, Sienna. She closed the journal, placed it back in her pack. The next morning, Hollis found her in the SCIF. She was reviewing intelligence for Syria, target packages, threat assessments, preparing for the next mission. You ready? He asked. Always. That's not what I asked. She looked at him. I don't know how to be ready for anything except this, she said. Kincaid told me to be more than a weapon. I don't know how. Maybe you start by accepting that you're allowed to be both. A weapon when needed, a person when possible. Is that what you do? I try. Some days I succeed. Most days I don't. But I keep trying. Sienna nodded slowly, turned back to her terminal. Hollis? Yeah? Thank you. For 6 deployments. For 38 kills. For never treating me like I was anything other than the best at what I do. You are the best, but you're also my friend. Don't forget that. I won't. On her final night at FOB Stryker, Sienna walked to the memorial wall, a concrete barrier where the names of fallen soldiers were written in marker, temporary, waiting for the permanent monuments that would come later. She found a blank space, pulled out a marker, wrote carefully, Captain Nathaniel Blackwell, USA, KIA Mogadishu, 1993, 21 kills, Silver Star, Ranger, father, carried forward by his daughter. Below that, she added another name, Sergeant Mage Thomas Kincaid, USA, KIA Porkchop Hill, 1953, Silver Star, carried forward by his son. Two ghosts, two wars, two legacies intersecting on a concrete wall in Afghanistan. She stood back, looked at the names. Around them were dozens of others, hundreds, the accumulated dead from 20 years of war. I see you, she whispered to them all. I carry you, fides in tenebris. The helicopter that would take her to Syria arrived at 0600. General Kincaid was there to see her off. They didn't salute, didn't shake hands, just looked at each other with understanding that needed no words. As the helicopter lifted off, Sienna looked down at FOB Stryker, at the base where she had been humiliated, where she had proven herself, where she had connected with another person who understood the weight of carrying ghosts. The base grew smaller, disappeared. Another chapter closed. She turned forward, toward Syria, toward the next mission, toward whatever came next for a ghost with 48 kills and a rifle that had seen 3 wars. In her pocket, her father's journal. On her sleeve, the Phoenix patch in Kincaid's father's badge. In her hands, the rifle that connected her to a man she never knew, but would spend her life honoring. Fides in tenebris, faith in darkness. The helicopter climbed into the morning sky, carrying its cargo of ghosts toward whatever shadows waited ahead. Below, on the memorial wall, 2 names stood together. Fathers who died in different wars, carried forward by children who became warriors in their image. The legacy continued. The Phoenix still flew, and in the darkness, faith remained.